दोस्तों, we have a very young, dynamic and data-driven entrepreneur today, Ankur Sharma. Ankur, स्वागत है आपका GT Log में. Ankur has done his engineering in marine engineering, and then he also did his MBA from IIM Shillong. Ankur has worked with Amazon for 6.5 years with diverse areas. और फिर अंकुर ने अपनी एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप जर्नी शुरू की है विद द फ्लॉक एनर्जी, which is a very very exciting journey in terms of what Ankur is doing in Flock. So Ankur, the पहला क्वेश्चन तो बिल्कुल obvious क्वेश्चन है कि from the corporate life like Amazon to the startup journey, which is very much like machine learning, data driven approach, ये जो change है in terms of corporate to this entrepreneurship, वो पहले तो बताओ कि हुआ कैसे?
Sure.
What is the genesis of this?
First of all, thanks a lot, Anurag, for having me. Really appreciate the invitation. So I come from just a bit of background. So I come from a small town in Rajasthan called Churu.
Mm-hmm.
And while growing up, as most of the 90s kids would have faced,
Mm-hmm.
I also faced a lot of power cuts, and while watching very critical matches like India versus Pakistan, we would really have to struggle, call the local distribution center multiple times just to get the power back in the middle of these matches.
तो एक्चुअली ऐसा होता था कि फोन कर दिया और मतलब जो लोकल सप्लाई स्विच वो लोकेशन थी,
राइट,
वो पावर ऑन कर देती थी?
नहीं ऐसा नहीं होता था. बट और तो कुछ कर नहीं सकते थे, तो आप बस फोन करके अपना फ्रस्ट्रेशन निकालते थे कि शायद क्या पता आज लकी हूँ और वो
शायद बात मान जाए
शायद. तो वहां से शुरुआत हुई थी कि एनर्जी कितनी इम्पोर्टेंट. सो दैट वाज द फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर टू how critical it is for people to have access to energy. Another very interesting story is interesting but sad story is from my grandparents. So they used to live in so mine is a very big joint family, so they all used to live in a large hall, probably 50-60 years back. And they for the heating purposes during winters, they used to have this small sigdi, what we call it, where you put coal and it would keep the room warm. And one fine night, they just forgot to keep any of the doors or windows open, and it became like literally a gas chamber.
Yes.
Luckily, one of my uncles, he got up in the middle of the night and he opened it. Otherwise, everyone would not have been alive, and I would not have been sitting here with you. So that's also one key incident that had a deep impact on my life per se. When I heard about it, it still gives me shivers and still gives me nightmares at night when I think about it. So having gone through all these different limitations with regards to access to energy, it was one of the things that I really wanted to work upon. But as life might have, we are from the beginning, we are forced to go for IITs and IIMs and then get a high paying job. So that was the career for me as well. Started my career as a bachelor's, did my bachelor's in marine engineering, moved to IIM Shillong, spent 6 years with Amazon, 3 years in India, where I was part of the team that was launching Amazon Pantry at that time. Then moved to Luxembourg to lead the go-to-market strategy for Amazon devices. And that was a great experience for me per se, because I always wanted to get international exposure, work with different people of different cadres, different nationalities. And Luxembourg as a country has 52% of expats. So there were less number of Luxembourgish people and more number of people outside from different parts of Europe and the world. So that was a really eye-opening and amazing experience that I had. Moving to why I moved from Amazon.
और कोई स्टोरी जो तुम्हें लक्समबर्ग की ऐसे याद हो जो कि तुम्हें लगता है कि you want to maybe share with us, or you are allowed to share with us?
Sure. So I think one of the best stories from Luxembourg would be in the middle of COVID, we did 2 trips. One was to Iceland, and the other one was to Africa, Tanzania, Ethiopia. So both the trips were really amazing because it was in the middle of COVID. There were not many people on the roads. You would hardly see any tourists. The entire flights would be empty. So particularly to Iceland, it was an amazing trip, and one of the things I still reminisce about a lot, and would definitely want to revisit it someday with entire world flocking there. So yeah, so that's one of the key memories that I have from my time at Luxembourg. But most of it went in COVID, so there are not many memories that I do have. There were lots of house parties, of course. So yeah, so that's how Luxembourg was. So the reason behind moving from Amazon to entrepreneurship was an obvious one for me. So the main reason why I joined Amazon was to get an exposure to the business world and to see how exactly a giant like Amazon works. And so that has been my focus since the beginning, since the day I joined Amazon. So I actually started my career with Amazon in customer service department. So we were looking at the different issues that customers face, and I was the program manager there. So that was like the first thing that I was handling at Amazon. Then from customer service, I wanted to get exposure into the marketing side of things, especially on how the products are bought and sold on Amazon, how customers interact with the platform. So all of those things was another step that I took in order to gain more knowledge and expertise in managing business. And then definitely after I had done that, after I had knowledge in marketing and understood the category well, I decided to take more experience in an international role with a different kind of category, which was devices. So I would say that I was paving my path towards entrepreneurship since I joined Amazon, and
so somewhere on the back of your mind,
exactly,
becoming entrepreneur was always your wish list.
100%.
Very nice. Okay.
So yeah, at 2021, after COVID, I lost my granddad. He always used to tell me, till when are you going to work with these Lala companies?
Lala companies.
So he always wanted me to do something more meaningful and give back to the society. So probably it was also a trigger for me. So I said that, okay, I have had enough. Now it's probably time to do something of my own. So that was my transition from Amazon to entrepreneurship.
So leaving one Lala and becoming yourself a Lala,
right,
was also your grandfather's suggestion?
Yeah, probably.
Very nice. अच्छा, जैसे Amazon जैसे एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में जब आप काम करते हैं तो मतलब you have maybe I think lot of data available, है ना? You mentioned कि आप strategy team का part भी थे. तो डेटा जितना बाहर से हम लोग को लगता है कि मतलब इतना डेटा यूज करके और फिर बहुत सारे इंट्रूसिव मार्केटिंग स्ट्रेटजीज हमने देखी हैं जो लोगों को बहुत परेशान भी करती हैं बहुत सारे समय. तो मतलब इट वाज एक्चुअली पीपल वर डूइंग इट, और मतलब या खुद करते थे या आउटसोर्स करते थे वो एक्टिविटी, या डेटा सेंट्रिक अप्रोच रहती तो है ही है, बिकॉज दैट इज व्हाट वी मे बी आई थिंक कीप सीइंग सच इनिशिएटिव्स.
श्योर.
तो मतलब कितना फोकस रहता था उस समय?
I think I would say Amazon is a quite data-centric company. Most of the decisions that would be taken from the top leadership to even the associate level would be data-driven decisions, be it your annual reviews where you are being judged against your performance, or be it the campaigns that you are planning for your customers, the amount of marketing space that you are going to get within the Amazon ecosystem, the kind of funds that are going to be allocated to different categories for marketing and advertising budgets. All of these would be driven by the kind of matrices that you show. So there would be KPIs, key performance indicators that you would be working towards, and as and when you achieve them, then only the funds or any kind of importance would be given to you.
Right.
In terms of intrusive marketing and getting into the lives of people, I would say as much as Amazon might claim and As much as people might say that whether it's ethical or not, it's a question for some other day. But I would say there's definitely data can be used in multiple ways, and there's definitely an angle where people would feel that their privacy has been intruded, and that's why probably people had concerns around having Alexas and all these different devices, voice control devices in their homes. But at the same time, it improves the customer experience as well. So how most of the machine learning AI models work is by collecting and understanding customer level data at large extents. So if you have to get better services, better products, then some level of data sharing from the customer side has to happen, because that's the only way for companies to know whether what is exactly that you want.
अच्छा, region wise भी जो database जो strategies बनती थी अलग-अलग होती थी, because sometimes, for example, in US you have a lot of maybe legal compliances that such companies have to follow.
Right.
वहाँ पे अगर actually intrusive case को validation हो गया, then there is a heavy or hefty penalty also on the organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
फिर कुछ maybe countries or the regions, let's say Asia region, जहाँ पे मतलब लोगों का behavior अलग तरीके से है, उसके हिसाब से strategies in terms of data analysis अलग तरीके से करनी है. Then you have African region where maybe people are more sturdy, and then they can maybe I think be served with a different strategy with respect to the maybe analysis and these things. तो ऐसा मतलब region wise या लोगों के behavior और उस तरह के usage pattern, इन सब को भी लोग मतलब ध्यान रखना चाहिए ideally. मतलब I'm sure like Amazon तो रखती ही होगी,
right?
But in general, how important it is to look at the regions and the people behavior while defining and devising the strategies for maybe I think sales or maybe services and products.
I think it's very critical because customer behavior is very dependent on the kind of surroundings that you grow in. If I take, and most of your soft skills are also quite dependent on what kind of upbringing or what kind of place you were brought up. So I always consider myself to be quite
patientful.
Yeah, patient and quite hard-willed, so to say. Like if I get behind something, I just get behind it with all
people
my life.
who have the maybe I think wishes and the dreams of becoming an entrepreneur, I think they cannot be having a less patience.
Sure.
So
100%.
maybe I think in your case, my response was obvious, but in general, I'm saying that maybe I think I understand when you mentioned that country wise or the maybe I think location wise, people have a less tolerance level, or their maybe I think response level is low or higher based on how their upbringing has been so far.
Right, absolutely. So yeah, that would play a quite critical role in understanding what kind of strategies you devise for different people. Like if you take an example of India per se, people are quite price sensitive. So the entire strategy behind launching Nano car was to penetrate that middle to lower income segment, which probably would not have worked in any other country for that matter. Or if you take African examples, there the per capita income or the power purchase parity is even lesser. So the product and the services that you design for those particular markets would have to take into consideration all of those parameters as well. So yeah, it's quite definite that until unless you take all of these demographic parameters into consideration, it won't be a holistic strategy that you can define.
Fair enough. Okay. Coming to next phase, So you were mentioning about the transition from Amazon to Flock.
Right. So after 2021, after spending roughly 6 years, decided that okay, now is the time to move on. So I started my first company in the climate tech space, which was called Reset. Yeah. We were trying to automate the issuance of carbon credits. So right now, carbon credits, how they are issued is there would be verifiers who would go on the ground. If it's say a farm which is doing regenerative agriculture, They would take soil samples and send it back to laboratories to understand what is the carbon sequestered by this particular activity. Or if they are doing it for, say, afforestation practices, then they would measure the length, breadth, width of trees, and based on that, understand what is the carbon sequestered. So these were the very manual things that people are still doing, or the verifiers are still doing, which A, emits carbon, and B, is not very efficient. It's because the end user is not going to get the full value of those credits if there are costs associated in generating them. So we were trying to address that pain point, both from environmental standpoint as well as from financial standpoint. So we were using technologies like spectroscopy, LiDAR, satellite imaging to triangulate different data points and see if we can arrive at those numbers, how accurately we can arrive at those numbers of around carbon sequestration. So yeah, I did that for almost a year before realizing if there is a significant role that technology has to play in this particular domain, then it has to be regulated. I mean, the regulations have to change, and you cannot build companies waiting for regulations to change. So put that on a back burner. I thought probably I'll revisit it at some stage, which never happens, I think. And join.
So most of the times, maybe I think we also have seen that maybe I think it is the expectations from the market that the entrepreneur will make the innovations.
Right.
And then when the product is there or the solution is there, then certainly whether this is the right time for the solution or the product, or it is just the avant-garde situation for the product. So I think all these things that have to be part and parcel of the, maybe I think, validation process. And then if certainly if you are times ahead, then you have to maybe I think change the course of the action. You bring some pivot, or you may maybe I think do some modification in the solution, and then maybe I think make it more viable for the future options.
Definitely.
Yeah. But for this solution, which is I understand as a nature-based solution, and you started in US or in
Luxembourg.
In Luxembourg only. And the market was also there because generally I think nature-based solution, particularly like this, where you have to assess the carbon in the soil. Maybe I think we had any specific cases in India also, such projects and their validation?
Yeah, there are multiple such projects going on. So Enking International is one such company that is doing quite a few projects in India around nature-based solutions. So yeah, but we were not targeting it we were not looking at it from an Indian lens. We were targeting European carbon credits market is much bigger, much larger. The incentives are much greater over there. So we were looking at it from a more of a global lens or Europe first lens. We were also trying to look into other solutions. So one is nature-based, and there are the other solutions like compressed biogas, CBG, biochar. So all of these other carbon sequestration or carbon emission avoidance mechanisms or products, we were also looking at how we can automate the issuance of carbon credits for the manufacturing and disbursement of these different alternative fuels as well. So we were trying to work with a few plants in Nepal around CBG. So yeah, that's also something that we were looking at. But yeah, like you rightly said,
लगा कि ये नहीं चलेगा अभी, थोड़ा समय के पहले हो तुम.
हाँ, exactly.
फिर ये realize हो गया.
हाँ,
ठीक है, फिर आगे.
So just before I move on, I think there is a very interesting report that I read from McKinsey, which tries to categorize the success of a startup on 4 key parameters. The first one is team, the second one is timing, third one was market, and the fourth one was operations. If you were to take a wild guess, what would you say is the most important or critical factor for the success of startup?
Maybe I think the time.
Yeah, that's right. 42% importance is given to the timing, followed by team and so on. So I think, at that time I didn't get a chance to read this report, but I think I had my I had it clear in my head that probably the timing is not right.
No time, I think, because we invite a lot of entrepreneur, I think, and then I remember the last week where we invited Shishir Gupta. He's again a founder of Octar, and then Octar is into IoT solutions. Now they have launched their own meters also.
Okay.
And then he started his journey again 2006 onward, long back. And then he also mentioned that the solution that was maybe being provided at that point of time, it was times ahead.
Right.
And there was a situation that they realized after 6 years of their entrepreneurship journey. And then they maybe, I think, switched to the product-based business compared to the solution-based business, which they ran for maybe, I think, close to 10 years. Now he's still part of it. But the time has been maybe, I think, the biggest essence, the most valuable component for the startups. So I totally agree with you. And the McKinsey's report as well.
Great. So yeah, right after Reset, I still wanted to continue into climate tech. I could find my calling over there. Really wanted to contribute back to the society, and I'm really scared that probably in 26 years there would not be Earth to live on, or the livable conditions won't be there if we are not to adhere to the 1.5 degrees target that we aligned on.
तो वहाँ पे लोग बहुत scared in general भी इस तरह की statements से रहते हैं.
I think there are.
मतलब my question. I just explained, because when you talk to the Indian demography,
right?
Maybe I think such statement still has I think low standing.
Yeah, zero standing probably.
Zero standing, I think, is becoming a low standing nowadays. थोड़ा लोग तो समझने लगे हैं, but still लोगों को लगता है कि क्या ही मतलब ठीक है, देख लेंगे. So मतलब देख लेंगे मतलब कि they have a lot of conviction कि देख लेंगे क्या हो जाएगा. We'll figure out something. But whenever you talk to a demography, maybe I think from EU region or maybe some other, maybe I think developed countries, मतलब they are almost like on the verge of getting scared situation पे हैं.
Sure.
तो मतलब what is your perception कि जब ऐसा वहाँ पे तुमने सुनते रहते थे तो मतलब yourself realize कि नहीं सब कुछ खत्म हो जाएगा.
I think the general awareness is multifolds more than what we have in India around the issues surrounding climate change,
obviously,
and global warming particularly. So, but there are extremists as well, there are conspiracy theories running around as well, where they claim that all of this is just to promote renewable technologies and to take revenue from one stream, which is the oil-based industries, to another stream, which is renewables. So yeah, there are those conspiracy theories as well. But yeah, I would say, compared to where in general the Indian populace is, they would be certainly much more aware of this reality. So yeah, continuing. So I decided that I want to continue in climate tech. Got an opportunity where Zinc, which is a venture builder program based out of London, they were launching their first climate-focused cohort. They select roughly 70 odd people from across the globe to come and build companies, meet with like-minded people, and try and impact the mission that they have for that particular cohort in the best possible way. So this was based out of London. So I joined Zinc in October 2022, and as soon as I think mid of November, I had met my lovely and super intelligent co-founder, Matt Reisenstein, and we decided that we want to build a company together, and we want to build it in India or for India. So with that clear vision, we pitched to Zinc in March 23 in front of the investment committee, got the first round of investment from Zinc, which also meant that we had to headquarter the company in London. That was one of the requirements that their investment came with. So we headquartered the company in London, but we were very clear that the road to decarbonization has to go through India. So instead of trying to build something for the UK market, which already has quite a lot of companies trying to solve similar problems or are quite active in the energy domain. We thought that probably Indian market, which does not have that kind of exposure to newer technologies, or where companies are not yet focused on the next gen of cleaner technologies and how to bring about a change in the grid systems and utility space, particularly, aren't that many. So we thought that we want to contribute as much as we can towards the advancement of the grid infrastructure and energy ecosystem through Flock Energy in India. So we packed our bags after we got the investment, got on the first flight to Delhi, landed here in April 23, and since then we have been building Flock Energy for India in India.
So Flock, I personally like the name Flock very much. Flock का in general understanding जो है वो झुंड है,
right?
Collection or collective strength. तो फ्लॉक का जो आइडिएशन है इन टर्म्स ऑफ द नाम या नेम ऑफ दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, वो कैसे पड़ा, थोड़ा उसके बारे में बताओ कि और मुझे लगता है कि बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग सा एरिया है वेयर यू आर वर्किंग एज ए फ्लॉक एज एन एनर्जी इज वर्किंग, बिकॉज वर्किंग ऑन द डेटा ड्रिवन approach, particularly for the utility companies or participating in the energy transition with the data-centric business solutions is very unique, particularly for the Indian market. You mentioned that you have maybe built or registered the company in UK,
right?
But building, maybe I think eyeing the market of India and building a team also in India. So that is also the unique proposition, which maybe I think maybe we have a lot of questions around that as well.
Sure. So the name Flock was, I'll give Matt the credit for coming up with that name. So the idea that we had pitched to Zinc was around virtual power plants, and the entire concept of virtual power plants is to aggregate resources, both on the distributed energy resources, both on the supply side and demand side, and make them work in conjunction with each other, develop absolute synergies between them. So how we imagined it was we would be aggregating such kind of resources in the form of, like, we imagined them to be literally birds, which would be coming together and creating like a flock of distributed energy resources. That's how we thought of the name. Yeah,
very nice. I think it's a great thought. Thank you, Matt, for maybe I think naming such name.
For sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Great. So that's how we named the company, and since then we have been working with multiple utilities in India.
तो क्या करते हो Flock as a organization में, what are the solutions targeting for, थोड़ा सा अगर समराइज करके बताओ कि क्या क्या करते हैं, क्लाइंटेल किस तरीके का है, या व्हाट इज द maybe I think vision in terms of covering the Indian demography, with respect to the kind of business solutions.
Okay.
Yeah.
For simplicity's sake, I would like to term what we are trying to build as a energy brain. So what we believe is there's a lot of data that is available with the utilities and in the broader energy ecosystem, which is currently not being utilized for the betterment of the products and services that utility provides to their customers, and towards the advancement of cleaner, greener technologies that are upcoming or already in the market. So what we believe, if this data is contextualized and if this data is used in a proper manner, this can be useful for the entire broader energy ecosystem and its participants, starting from companies that are doing, say, solar rooftop, or companies that are selling products and services, other products and services around batteries, EVs, OEMs who are manufacturing air conditioning units, and even towards the advancement of some of these products and services, we need access to this data, or these companies need access to this data. Similarly, on the other hand, customers, and when I say customers, these are residential customers primarily, because those are the ones that we are targeting at the moment. Residential customers also don't have any clue on what's going on in their households in terms of total energy consumption.
Right.
There's just a monthly bill that would come at the end of every month, and they would just pay it and that's about it. They will forget about it.
Mm.
That is primarily because the cost of electricity is still quite affordable in India, given the subsidies that residential sector receives from the governments, and B, it's not hitting them so hard as of yet. You take an example of UK during Ukraine crisis, the cost went up like 2 times, 3 times, and which is 300, 400 pounds a year is a significant amount of money for people who are not earning that much, even in UK. So
how much is that? 200 pounds?
200, 300 pounds a year in terms of gas prices rising or electricity costs. It might be even more. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but it was quite a brunt that people were bearing just because of the rising energy prices. There were multiple government schemes as well to support lower income groups.
Price surge was maybe, I think, much more than the expectations.
Absolutely.
It was hitting people there. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the things that we believe the residential customer should become more aware about how they're consuming the energy, what are the different things that they can do in order to preserve energy and become more efficient. So that's also one customer segment that we are targeting alongside the OEMs and all the other product service providers. And then the last segment, but the most important one, is the utilities, who owns most of this data. But given the inertia that utilities generally have, and there's only so much that the utilities can do by themselves. So we believe that there's a lot of value that this data can drive for them if used in a proper manner, and which currently is not happening because of technological limitation, because of manpower limitation, because of funds limitation. And that is what we are trying to bridge. So this gap is what we are trying to bridge. Be that platform that can be used, data platform that can be used by utilities, product and service providers, and the end customers all in one, to advance the energy transition and transformation towards a more cleaner and greener energy ecosystem. So that's what Flock is trying to build in a nutshell.
Residential customer के लिए data driven वाला part हो गया, फिर utility companies के लिए गया, on the first one is RE part. Renewable energy को support की तरह.
Exactly.
Right? तो वाला part है. Okay.
So not just renewable energy, but anyone who is working in the energy ecosystem. It can be solar developers, it can be EV manufacturers, it can be battery manufacturers. In UK, it can be heat pump manufacturers. So all the new and upcoming technologies that are impacting the lives of customers or end consumers directly.
उनको data insights और इस तरह की चीजें
exactly
provide कराना. Okay. You mentioned the residential customer. So, and you also mentioned that they really not paying attention on the source of the electricity bill,
right?
But they actually pay the bills simply just because the bill is lower than the expectations.
Right.
But ऐसा generally मतलब एक और reason से कारण भी होता है, because मतलब they also have a less visibility about the maybe I think the data as well.
Right.
कि उनके पास electricity bill तो आता है, but वो bill देने के अलावा उनके पास कोई option नहीं है. And then जो मतलब जो analysis है वो उनको bill ज़्यादा आ जाता है तो अपने आप ही सोच लेते हैं कि हाँ वो AC ज़्यादा चला होगा.
Exactly.
कम आता है तो सोच लेते हैं कि हाँ मौसम ठंडा रहा होगा. ऐसे अपने आप ही लोग analysis कर लेते हैं.
Right.
But they really don't have any means to go into the great detail in terms of ये bill इतना आया कैसे.
100%.
But आज के time में maybe I think most of the locations में, particularly if I say north part of the country, maybe 8 rupees per kilowatt hour or the per unit price is there,
right.
8 rupees to 8.5 rupees, which is not less. We also have seen the bills, maybe I think 4 rupees, 5 rupees as well. And recently, in maybe I think some years of time, the bills have just gone double almost. Right. तो उस तरह केसेस में अभी नहीं तो कुछ समय बाद तो वो पिंच करने ही लग जाएगा.
Exactly.
तो आपको क्या लगता है कि मतलब how long the maybe I think a residential household will be maybe I think will be made aware or will be aware about such maybe I think issues कि उनको कितने समय में ऐसा लग सकता है कि हाँ जो बिल है वो ज़्यादा हो रहा है एंड दे नीड टू नो कि उसका जो रीज़न है वो क्या है, वेदर उनका इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का बिल जो है वो एसी ज़्यादा चलने के कारण आया है, गीज़र के कारण आया है, या कुछ और रीजंस के कारण आया है. ऐसा है कुछ एंटिसिपेटरी मतलब इनसाइट कि कितना समय और लग सकता है? I'll also tell you one of the reasons.
Sure.
Let's say we also have a subsidiary firm which manufactured these dual source prepaid energy meters. And apart from the energy bills, the developer has never asked, or even the consumer has also never asked कि उसका जो बिल है वो उसका फ्रेगमेंटेशन क्या है या उसका डिटेल क्या है, कभी किसी ने नहीं पूछा. तो वी अंडरस्टैंड एज ए मे बी आई थिंक मीटरिंग कंपनी एज वेल कि शायद वो रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ मे बी आई थिंक मेकिंग द डेटा यूटिलाइज्ड or understand maybe for further usage for those data sets that we ourselves used to have. We thought that this is something which is meant as a product only for the billing. तो billing solution की तरह चलने लगा. But maybe I think when I see and when I discuss with maybe entrepreneur like you who have that maybe I think great understanding of maybe I think the data and then maybe further detailing it down to a level where you can find some insights, it looks very good because मुझे personally भी लगता है कि शायद ये information उनको बहुत help कर सकती है in terms of defining and deciding the future procurements of their maybe appliances at their home level, household level. और उससे बहुत सारे इकोसिस्टम को भी बहुत सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल जाएगी. किस तरह के अप्लायंसेस चाहिए, इन जनरल जो मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं उनके लिए भी एक अलग तरीके की इंसाइट भी हो सकती है कि किस तरीके की जो प्रोक्योरमेंट है या जो बाई चल रही है कस्टमर में हाउस होल्ड लेवल पे, वो किस तरीके की या कितना एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी लेवल के उनको अप्लायंस मार्केट में सप्लाई करें ताकि डिमांड उस तरह से मीट हो सके. अभी तो वो भी नहीं क्लियर होता है, किसी को भी नहीं क्लियर है कि डिमांड और सप्लाई का जो आपस में जो सिंक होना चाहिए वो एक्चुअली में है भी कि नहीं है. तो इसीलिए जो वेस्ट है, वेस्ट इन द सेंस कि अगर वो गैप है डिमांड और सप्लाई में, तो कहीं ना कहीं उसकी जो हीट है वो मैन्युफैक्चर को ही फील होती है. सो बहुत सारे मतलब इकोसिस्टम में उस तरह की बेनिफिट्स हो सकते हैं इफ द डेटा इज अवेलेबल एंड डेटा कैन बी मे बी आई थिंक एनालाइज्ड फर्दर. तो मतलब what is your insight in terms of how long the maybe ecosystem, you mentioned the India as a market, Logue in general, maybe if I bifurcate the demography into maybe urban location, semi-urban location and rural, let's focus on the urban location. कितने टाइम में ये जो population है वो इस तरीके के data insights के लिए थोड़ा सा mature होगी?
Yeah, brilliant question, Anurag. So I think there are two key parameters. The first one is just a sheer lack of trust that people have in their bills. Like we have moved from electrochemical meters to static meters to now smart meters, and people are still complaining. There are still 400, 500 people every day that would be visiting utility offices and claiming that their bills are incorrect. So that's one thing which the utilities themselves are trying to make sure that they provide more transparency to their customers. So it's less from a customer demand side, but more from a utility push side, where they are saying that, okay, I'm going to tell you these are things that are consuming this much in your households. So utilities should take that initiative and educate their customers so that all these contacts that they get from on their customer centers or the footfalls that they get in their customer care offices would reduce, and overall the generic trust that people are lacking in utilities would improve. So that's one side of the equation. From a customer side, I think the regulations are going to play a very critical role here as well. So we see that time of day tariff has been introduced for industries starting this year. It's going to be introduced to quite an extent in residential sector as well. It's already present in some states, but it's going to be a much more planned rollout over the next year. Then we are also, once smart meters are deployed, time of use tariff is not far away as well. And once that happens, that's when customer would really want to know, okay, if I'm running an AC at 12 p.m. in the afternoon, what's the cost that I have to give for that? Can I move it by 1 hour? Can I just run the AC at 24 degrees Celsius instead of just every time turning it on 18 degrees Celsius in the middle of the day when the prices are 3x? So those technological interventions and regulatory interventions are going to make customers care much more about how they use their electricity and when they use their electricity. So another example would be, especially for flexible demand. So if you were to run a washing machine, why do you care if it's running at 2 p.m. in the afternoon or 2 a.m. in the morning? You would just want your clothes to be dried and ironed probably over the weekend. So you can probably flex that demand, thereby saving yourself a couple of tens of bucks, just because the price is much more when you actually run your washing machine.
Right.
So those are the things that would make people much more aware about and care about how they're using their electricity. And then this kind of analytics would be really important for them. So I think infrastructure is improving with the deployment of smart meters, which is going to drive all of these different changes in customer behavior as well.
Okay, very nice. So I think what you were saying, Ankur, that maybe if we incentivize the model, maybe I think with the share benefits as an approach, then if the utilities can save some money by avoiding the peak load purchase, they can share this profit with the incentivization of the maybe customers or household level who are ready to maybe optimize the requirement, that is one, at a particular time. Or we see the demand flexibility, as you mentioned, instead of maybe running the washing machine at 6 p.m. they can run it at 4 or vice versa.
Exactly.
So something like this.
100%.
तो उसको इन पैसा दिखेगा तो फिर वो शायद अपने बिहेवियर को चेंज कर सकता है. So जब पैसा नहीं दिखेगा तब तक नहीं चेंज करेगा. लॉजिकल भी है.
It's basic economics. Like you are purchasing power at 12 rupees. If you give 3 rupees to the customer, you would save probably 5 rupees. So you'd rather give that.
इसमें दो कॉन्सेप्ट हैं. मतलब एक तो है कि इंसेंटिवाइज कर दिया कि आपने इतने बजे के बजाय इतने बजे कर लिया तो यूटिलिटी आपको लेट्स से 2 रुपए पर यूनिट के वो पैसा दे रही है. दूसरा है कि हम 2 रुपए उसको पेनल्टी लगा दें. तो which one is more interesting enough for the consumer?
I think it's a traditional carrot and stick approach. So I would say Indian customers are much more inclined there would be a behavioral study that we would have to run, but my hunch says that if they are earning money, then that's going to be much more powerful with Indian customers.
तो पैसा दें तो ज़्यादा important है. पेनल्टी लगा दें और पीछे से पैसा दे दें. वो भी एक approach है.
But पेनल्टी लगाना इंडिया में is going to be a tougher sell. Regulatory side से then people are going to come on the streets. ऐसा कैसे कर रहे हो? All of those might be challenges. So probably it's better to just.
पेनल्टी का मतलब है कि टाइम बेस्ड टैरिफ हो जाए. तो अपने आप ही वो डिक्लेयर्ड है तो वो पेनल्टी की तरह नहीं है वो. तो मतलब एक तो रेजिडेंशियल कस्टमर के हिसाब से मे बी आई थिंक अवेयरनेस इज द मॉडल जो आएगी विद रिस्पेक्ट टू मे बी RDSS इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के साथ. और फिर इस तरह के जो मॉडल्स होंगे टैरिफ में वो सब चीज़ें इस चीज़ को ड्राइव करेंगे. यूटिलिटी कंपनीज के लिए जो फ्लॉक एनर्जी का जो मॉडल है वो कैसा उनको हेल्प कर सकता है, या जो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड एनर्जी सोर्सेज हैं उनके लिए कैसे मॉडल्स हो सकता है. मतलब कुछ केस एग्जांपल्स दे करके बताएं तो शायद थोड़ा सा लिसनर्स को बेहतर तरीके से समझ आ सकता है.
Sure, 100%. So there's a business model innovation that we have worked on. We believe that utilities already have a lot on their plate, and we don't want to be one such company that is trying to sell to the utility. Instead, what we are trying to do is we want to partner with the utilities and make a proposition which is not just beneficial for them, but it's beneficial for the larger energy ecosystem, which ultimately transmits all these their benefits to some extent back to the utilities. So there's a double dipping which is happening at the utility side, or they're getting the benefits twice just by partnering with us. So what we do with the utilities is we are we are currently piloting with 3 utilities in India. And what we are doing is we are asking them to provide us the residential customer data. We are running these pilots, and based on this data, we are trying to help utilities understand this data better in a much more optimized manner, and help them with use cases such as theft identification, better demand forecasting. Aggregating solar demand is another such use case that we are trying to help the utilities with. And all of these can be done if the data is meaningfully captured and meaningfully analyzed, whichever machine learning model does. So that's the model that we are operating with utilities at zero cost. You provide us the data, we provide you the analytics. There is also behavioral and energy efficiency reports that we provide to the utilities, which are eventually sent to their customer base, especially entirely on the residential customer side, where we tell customers how they are consuming, how much they are consuming, what appliances are consuming more, what appliances are lower efficient appliances, which provides a good visibility to both sides, which is the utility and the residential customer, on what can be improved. So it can help utilities with appliance upgrade programs that multiple utilities are running at the moment. And at the customer side, it might help them reduce their energy bills by a certain amount. So these are the primary use cases that we are working with the utilities on.
Okay. So one aspect that we keep hearing from the maybe public utility companies कि वो डेटा जो है वो पब्लिक का है या हाउसहोल्ड का है, तो उसमें डेटा प्राइवेसी या इस तरह का इश्यूज भी आपके सामने आता होगा when you talk to them. So how do you deal with such queries and questions from them?
So as per the AMISP guidelines, I think the data belongs to the utility, what they're collecting through the smart meters, and they, from the guidelines itself, they can do whatever they want to in order to improve the products and services to the end consumer. And that's precisely what proposal we have for the utilities. We are saying we are not using this data for any other purposes. Right now, we are just using to help you out with improving the products and services that you are providing to the end consumer, which is very much within the guidelines that are there with regards to the smart meter data in India. And we are GDPR, we are trying to be GDPR compliant. We are building our tech in accordance with the GDPR regulations that are there.
What is GDPR?
GDPR is the data privacy regulation that is there in Europe, most of Europe.
Okay.
So it's considered the gold standard of privacy regulations.
Okay.
And Indian data regulation there was a regulation that was passed in 2023, but I think it still hasn't been implemented. There are still quite a few open points that are yet to be finalized from the government side. So there is not much clarity on what extent of this particular data would be, how it is to be used, what are the regulations that are going to go on this data. So we are still seeking clarity from the government on that.
As long as compliances आपके लिए forefront as a commitment है,
exactly,
तब तक कोई challenge नहीं हो सकता. That's fair point. So maybe in terms of residential customer per se, because you work with utilities, you work with residential household customer, and there is a synergy also between these two verticals or the entities. जो कमर्शियल कस्टमर्स हैं उनके लिए आपका फोकस था पहले, but अब नहीं है. Is there any specific reason? Is that the pivot that has been brought in the business?
Exactly. So what we were doing probably from April till November last year was we were trying to build this hardware device that would sit on the main power line in any given factory. And then we were sampling the current and voltage that is passing through it at a really high frequency, say 100 samples per second is what we were able to achieve through that hardware. And then we were using this data to disaggregate the total consumption and identify the different kind of machineries that are there in the factory. And identify if there are any issues, if there are any maintenance that is required, how they're consuming versus what ideally they should be consuming, if there are any other inefficiencies in their entire end-to-end supply chain. So that those were the things that we were trying to do with the industries for majority of the last year. But what we realized was, industries are super complex. There's no blueprint even for industries that are next to each other. Each industry is like an entire beast in all different beasts altogether. So that's why we thought it again about building a company in this space, given how unorganized and how difficult it can be to work with factories. So we thought that probably we don't want to spend another 5 years of our life just trying to figure out how we can implement this solution. Both Matt and I, we were like not ready to take that challenge at this stage of our lives. So we said that probably we want to explore a simpler use case using the same technology. And that's why we pivoted from commercial to residential. Also, again, commercial and industrial customers are the blue-eyed babies for utilities. They are the ones they don't want anyone to be mingling with or touch. They don't want anyone to touch them. So yeah, that was also one of the reasons that we thought probably, because we have to work in this sector with the utilities, probably try and target a sector which is kind of a pain point for utilities, rather than trying and solving for something which may not be entirely aligned with the utilities and their ambitions. So that's why we thought that probably residential sector suits.
But I understand in terms of commercial entities की तरह ही residential household भी complex होता है.
Right.
But maybe I think number is much more. You can always normalize the data. Maybe I think it's better than the commercial number. Okay. अगर solution architecture की बात करें, मतलब so you have hardware plus maybe software, or मतलब how do you maybe I think so you have, let's say 100 households data, and then you have to maybe you will analyze the data and bring some maybe I think recommendations, analytics out of it, or you will also be putting some hardware in their household level inside, and then it will also do something. What is the architecture maybe of your solution?
Sure. So we are not putting any hardware. We are not working with any hardware at the moment. Our direction and our vision is clear that we want to be a data platform. So you provide us the data. We are going to use our AI ML models, and we are going to give you a meaningful output out of that data. So that's what we are building. We used to have a hardware. We built a hardware, but hardware is hard. So we
better to be soft.
Yeah. So we left that, and now we are completely focused on software and data as a service, data platform as a service. So we let utilities deploy the smart meters. We are just there to collect the data that the smart meters are pushing, and use that data for the benefit of utilities and everyone else.
स्मार्ट मीटर से ही जो डेटा निकलता है वो आपको additional अलग से डिवाइस लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है.
Exactly.
You get the data from that machine. So maybe I think this is a very interesting, because the more data points that you have, certainly your worth is also much more, because it brings a lot of information for you.
100%.
So I'm sure like when there's maybe perceived wealth or worth there in the businesses, then I'm sure like the VC money, investors, their attention is also there. Right. So I trust that maybe I think across the globe at this point of time, such organizations, they get a lot of maybe I think red carpet welcome to such maybe AI, ML or such maybe data-driven business ideas or innovations.
Right.
तो एक तो है क्वेश्चन कि मतलब you also have raised some funds. So how easy or difficult it is now in terms of maybe raising the fund for such business ideas?
Right.
That is one. And since the the working country for the flock energy is India, what are the other competitions or competitors that maybe I think you have working in the similar domain or the region?
Sure. Again, it might be slightly controversial, what I'm going to say, but I believe Indian VCs are still targeting the mainstream or
conventional businesses, bringing the margin for them.
Yeah. So the D2C businesses of the world is what most of the VCs are prioritizing. So yeah, it's difficult to raise funds, at least in India, for clean tech and for deep tech technologies. There are VCs coming up, and some of them are doing really great job. But yeah, the proportion of such VCs is still quite low, which is a request as well from my side and from other entrepreneurs that are trying to build companies in this space, that we should try and get more VCs who are focused on climate tech and who are focused on deep tech technologies and companies. So yeah, it is slightly tricky in India. That's why we are trying to raise our next round, which we are going to kick off in a month's time. Starting 15th of October, we are trying to raise roughly 1.1 million pounds for our pre-seed raise. And we are trying to raise both from Indian investors as well as from UK investors. So if there are any people who would be interested in investing in our company, feel free to drop me a line and we'll be more than happy to take the conversation.
Definitely. We'll also maybe I think insert this pitch or deck pitch in the podcast as
lovely. That would be great. So yeah, that would be the current investment scenario in India.
तो अभी मतलब इंडिया में इस तरह की और भी कंपनीज हैं जो काम करती हैं, but maybe focusing on the residential,
right,
and the utility companies and certainly other energy resources that you mentioned.
Yeah. So there are companies like BIJLI is one of the companies that is doing very similar work to what we are doing, at least on the disaggregation side. But I think how we differentiate ourselves or what we are doing different is we are not trying to sell to utilities. And this is probably one of the key blockers that most of the companies face, because once you get into financial conversations with utilities, the lead time for converting those conversations into meaningful outputs increases drastically. And we believe that the real power would be in getting access to that data, getting access to working with utilities. And that's why we are saying that, okay, we want to work on a freemium model where we integrate with utilities for free, provide them certain level of analytics for free, and then identify other external sources of revenue for keeping the company afloat or generating revenues.
Okay.
So that's our idea. Then there are the companies like Oracle as well, which acquired O-Power some time back. They had done a pilot with BRPL around behavioral energy efficiency reports few years back. So that's also one of the companies that we consider. I mean, they're too big. They can. They can.
So that's all right. Don't be humble.
They are one of those companies. CEW is also working in this space. There are a few other smaller companies as well that are trying to work on the disaggregation side of things. So yeah, those would be a few of the competitors that are operational in India at the moment.
Very nice. So maybe I think so the community which lends the money to raise such organizations. So you see that the organizations or maybe such lenders or the maybe VC or the maybe investor, they are also growing in Indian market. But you see a lot of maybe I think traction in the developed countries,
right?
Maybe US or EU region, where people are more maybe I think looking forward to maybe listening to the ideas and the innovations that are being envisaged around this AI ML or the data driven approach, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Very nice.
That's spot on.
Great. So Ankur, we have some rapid fire also for you.
Sure.
So maybe I think you can mention that maybe in one word or one line. That how do you describe the future of clean energy yourself?
Hopeful.
Yeah, hopeful. And what is your when we go to productivity tool?
Asana.
And best piece of advice you have ever received, maybe from your advisor, from your partner, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Best piece of advice. I think the best time to do something was yesterday. The next best time is right now.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah. Get shit done.
Not now, but yesterday. So any specific, maybe I think very exciting technology that you feel that maybe I think will be the future? Any specific exciting technology that you have come across so far, apart from yours?
I have strong belief in modular nuclear technology. I really like the vision that is there and how it can serve some of the captive use cases. So it's still not very much available to be used. I mean, it is, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in this space to ensure the feasibility of it, but I'm quite hopeful.
Very interesting. So maybe I think as an entrepreneur, I trust that maybe you work 24/7 in general understanding, a lot of struggle and hustle that you have, maybe I think you have been so far. But what is your unwind mantra in terms of maybe what is your go-to strategy to make yourself relax after a busy day, apart from reaching home and asking for some?
Right. I would say I like reading. So reading books is something that gives me a new perspective.
So are you a vivid reader? Means you read a lot, or you?
No, I don't read. I try to read a lot, but I don't get. I never get around to read a lot.
Not much of the time that you get. Okay, I wish that you get more time.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So maybe I think one question that I also have, that maybe you got lucky when you got a chance to maybe to participate in Zinc, a platform where maybe I think entrepreneur like you yourself got a chance to maybe I think to meet with the partner like Matt and maybe develop the idea and then build the company. What is the infrastructure that we have in India? We have seen the government initiatives like Startup India.
Right.
We are seeing a lot of private players. They are also initiating like maybe school of startups from PW, Physics Wala. And we have also seen a lot of maybe I think newer age entrepreneur who are maybe are doing great in their life as of now, and they have also contributed, and collectively like a flock they are building a lot of such school of thoughts where the new age entrepreneur can be participative and they can come forward. Traditionally, we have seen a lot of maybe premier colleges like IITs, IIMs. They have the entrepreneurship development cell or the incubation cells as well. How do you see the Indian ecosystem in terms of encapsulating such infrastructure, which is very much important, because when the government or the private sector or maybe I think the people like you inspire a lot of young minds in terms of building the business, I'm sure like such support is required. The only inspiration, most of the cases, doesn't work. So how do you see the maybe I think the building up such infrastructure in India coming up?
We have come a long way in the last 5-6 years. I recently had a chance to go to Bangalore, and I was working in Bangalore in 2017 to 2019. The landscape has changed drastically. Like if you look at the roads that go from Hebbal to airport, on both sides of the road, 5 years back, there was nothing. And now there are multi-storied buildings that have come up where new startups, new offices are being built. So I think the government initiatives have supported the startups quite a lot. We are part of T-Hub, which is based out of Hyderabad. I mean, it's a world-class
it's a huge
incubator space, and the kind of people that we got to meet there it's just inspirational. There's right next to it, there's T-Works, which is, I think, the largest or the second largest prototyping space in the entire world. So those are the kind of things that state governments are taking initiatives towards, and the central governments are supporting as well. So I think we are in a great spot at the moment, and we're just going to go onwards and upwards from here. So quite hopeful. That's why I'm a core nationalist, so that's why I came back to the country as well. I have high hopes from our country. So.
Core nationalist and quite hopeful.
Yeah.
You have used the word hopeful almost like 6 times now.
Okay.
Great. So maybe I think last to last question. Maybe a specific policy change that you see, and maybe I think you see for yourself, but also you see for maybe I think other peer entrepreneurs as well.
Right.
From the government side, certainly government is doing a lot of initiative activities. There's a lot of fund available. But what is maybe I think the specific policy initiative that you see that can change the course of action and bring maybe hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs working in diverse areas? How to multifold the entrepreneurs?
Sure. I think one of the key things would be just to put a hard stop at things that are polluting. So be it your diesel or petrol cars, be it your coal power plants. I think those are some of the key things that we have to take a really hard call on. It's not going to be easy. We can find 1,500 reasons not to do it. But I think that's the need of the hour if you were to look at the kind of how drastic of a challenge we are facing in terms of climate change. So that's one policy initiative that I would say we need as soon as possible. Quite drastic, I know. There might be too many comments that you might get on this point of view, but I'm still going to say it. So that's one thing. And then I think specifically for electricity, energy sector, I think opening up the sector is going to go a long way. Opening up the sector for private players can be one of the key things that can unlock a lot of productivity and productivity enhancements. So yeah, those would be my 2 key policy changes.
Very nice. Okay. And maybe I think the last question on the personal side, Ankur. So maybe I think as an entrepreneur, I'm sure like it is more like an Herculean task for all of us. How do you balance? Maybe I think create the balance in your maybe personal and professional life.
Right.
You maybe I think recently got married a couple of years before.
Yeah.
And certainly marriage also is a very demanding, like other demand side arrangements that you do.
Right.
So how do you manage these 2 things together?
Yeah, I think I've been lucky enough to get somebody who is also entrepreneurially minded. So she herself is an entrepreneur. She's working as a fractional CTO with multiple startups. So that's why I think she understands when I'm busy and I understand when she's busy.
Very nice.
So that takes care of most of the things, most of the times.
Okay. So maybe I think go along with the maybe someone who understands the entrepreneurship as a mindset is also very much important.
100%.
So much congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And to your partner as well. So maybe I think the last question in terms of the key message to the listener, because I think you work in a very specific area, very maybe I think promising area, I would say. And then you also have shown and seen a lot of milestones in your life. Maybe I think you did your engineering, MBA, 5-6 years of corporate life, and then starting up the journey as an entrepreneur. So what is your maybe I think message to a lot of people who want to build their career, or maybe I think who want to build the entrepreneurship mindset in their career?
Right.
there are two type of maybe I think people that we see, because everything is not related to maybe I think starting yourself,
Right.
but maybe I think be a part of that culture is also equally important. So we celebrate both
Right.
kind of people.
100%. So one of the learnings that one of the things that I have tried to stick to in my career is whatever you are doing, just try to do it with your 100% effort, and you would find the right opportunity. You would meet the right kind of people. You would be appreciated by everyone around you. So be the person who is with dead honesty doing anything and everything that is assigned or given to him or her. I think that's very critical for learning most of the things that are there, and getting that mindset, because nobody likes somebody more than who can be reliable.
Yeah.
If you are somebody who is doing everything with 100% honesty, you're going to go do wonders in whatever you do. So that would be my piece of advice.
Great. Thank you so much, Ankur. I think it's great to learn from you the kind of work that you're doing, and I certainly wish you all the very best on behalf of our podcast. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll keep inviting you for maybe I think the kind of that good work that you are doing with the utilities and a lot of other stakeholders. Thank you so much for sharing those knowledge and the experiences that you have. Thank you so much, everyone.
Pleasure, Anurag. Thank you.